Hi everybody, I hope you enjoyed the long weekend we just had. Getting back into the swing of things here this week, trying to get everything ready for you all for next week. So this video is going to be about the assignments that are due Monday and Wednesday of next week. So it might look like a lot in the way that I explain this assignment or the assignments, but keep in mind that one of them is actually going to be really short. So I'll show you that when we get there. But the goals for this week are to think a little bit about it again. So you have already done a discussion post where you did some analytical work on it. I'm actually grading that stuff right now, so you should see grades pop up for pretty much everything you've done so far in this class. Probably about tomorrow. A lot of that stuff's going to the grades will pop up in the grade book, but I'm catching up on all that stuff and going to get all that ready for you, but wanted to take time today to get next week prepared for you all. So I'm going to go over the assignments and tell you what I'm looking for. Like I said, this week we've done some work with your analysis of it, or just at least starting to think about what this movie's about. But now I'm going to ask you to think a little bit about what other people are saying about the film. So we're going to do a little mini research project to think about the conversation at large. And then I'm going to ask you to go ahead and begin to think about how you're going to write about this movie. So let me take you to my screen here. So actually, I'm going to scroll up to the top of this Unit 1 content area. That's where I went. I clicked content. That's how I got here. And I'm just going to go over the prompt for this essay with you really quick. I'm going to move my screen over so you can see. Sorry. There we go. So a couple things. This is the essay prompt for your first major assignment for this course. It's not due for a few weeks, but I do have a pretty extensive essay building process. So that means that I take a lot of time with the assignments that are coming up to help you build the paper, not just to like, here's the prompt, figure it out. You know, the assignments, specifically the ones that are labeled essay building, are going to help you put the paper together along the way. This is always the way I teach writing. Even when I teach classes beyond English 1101 and 1102, I always do an essay building process. I think you'll enjoy it when you get to it. So that being said, don't be overwhelmed by this prompt. There will be lots of support along the way to get this paper put together. Okay, so basically what this assignment talks about is the reason why we're doing an interpretive analysis. I said here in the purpose of the assignment, humans are drawn to make meaning of the world and to understand what's going on. We are analyzing texts and meanings of things all the time, even when we don't know we are. You know, if someone's wearing a shirt with a political slogan on it, you might be like, oh gosh, they are this kind of person. You know, you automatically kind of have those thoughts. Or maybe someone of a particular religion that's different or similar to you, you might automatically be like, oh, I have this thought about that person, you know, just based on the things that you see. And that's just people. You know, there's art, there's movies, there's books, there's so many things we encounter in our daily lives that we're trying to understand what the author's trying to tell us. And that's kind of your job in this essay. So I said you're honing in on your natural ability to identify a trope in a text, summarize and support your interpretation of that trope with evidence, demonstrate an ability to critically read and analyze a text. We'll be using a secondary source from our discussion board this week, actually, so we'll get there in a second. And then practice employing college-level prose. So we're talking about our writing in this class. So we'll get to all that stuff as we move forward, but I just want to give you a quick guide of what's going to happen here. So you've got, I think it's 12 different tropes listed on this essay prompt. And if you remember from an earlier assignment, what we're calling a trope in this class is a pattern of recurring meaning. So something that seems to happen or show up a lot. Let's talk about maybe humor, for example. We have characters in the movie It who make jokes constantly. I'm specifically thinking about Richie. He always has a joke that he wants to tell, and they happen in weird moments. Sometimes it's like a really frightening moment and he tells a joke, or sometimes, you know, his joke is at the expense of someone else. Like sometimes they're mean. So what is Stephen King, or the author of the book plus the director of the movie, what are they saying about all these moments with humor? Why have so much humor in a horror movie? Why have a funny character who just constantly pops up? And then, I mean, even clowns, right? They're kind of funny. They're supposed to be, you know, they're kind of creepy too. But what's up with that? What's the theme of humor doing here? Another one that's kind of ready in my mind to think about is beauty. You know, you've got Beverly in her hair. You have Beverly choosing to cut her hair. You have Beverly as the only woman in this, well, I mean the only significant female character, and she is kind of in some ways idolized by Ben and maybe some of the other characters too, like the crush on her. So she has some kind of power from her beauty over her friends, but at the same time, none when you think about her relationship with her dad, right? Her beauty's almost a downfall. He almost punishes her for it. So is beauty something to be afraid of? You know, I'm kind of just very quickly thinking of these things, so they're not perfect, but you can see, right, that beauty is definitely a topic in this film. A lot of violence is easy. I don't even have to give you examples of that, right? You know, like violence was everywhere, but not just from the monster, from the bullies. Carving that H in Ben's belly, like that sticks in my mind as just horrifically violent. That's not even the monster in the movie doing it. That's just another kid. You know, so what's up with that? You know, is this movie really about clowns, or is it about something else? Is it about people? You know, and you can go all kinds of different directions. But that's kind of the sort of thoughts I'm hoping that can help you have. Like, what's the overall message in this film about some of these bigger concepts that we grapple with as humans all the time? So it's a lot of brain work, but I trust you can do this. So in any case, you're going to choose one of these tropes. You're going to have an introduction. You're going to have body paragraphs with topic sentences. I'm going to help you learn how to write all that stuff along the way. It's going to be 1,200 words submitted through Courseden. All this stuff you can read on your own, but just I hope that my explanation here kind of helped. You're making an interpretation on how a bigger part of humanity, whether that be exploitation, fear, gender roles, whatever, how it's being portrayed in this film. Not your opinion on how beauty should be in culture necessarily. What's Stephen King and the film It telling us about that bigger idea? How is it operating within the framework of the text we're looking at right now? I'll answer more questions about this as they arise, but that's just kind of a rough outline of where we're headed. I'm going to go back to the content area and show you what's due for this week. All the stuff that I have due for this week is to kind of help you get ready to do this paper. So we're looking ahead to the paper. The first discussion post that's due Monday is probably a little bit longer than the other two assignments. So I actually wrote a lot here because I wanted to really reinforce that concept about why we're analyzing fiction. What is the point? I know I talked about that in the other video, but I wanted to kind of reinforce some of my ideas there. So please read over that. It's not something you'll be quizzed on or that's really that important, but it is my words to you to try to kind of, I don't know, justify or explain why we're doing what we're doing, because I think it's important work. You're going to do a lot of important work in college. Sometimes I'm like, I think this is maybe the most important work that you're going to do in college. This skill of analyzing fiction. It seems kind of just for fun, but really it can change a lot about who you are and how you interact with other people, the kind of empathy that you build. So anyway, there's all that. But the task, if you scroll on down, has to do with you now interpreting someone else's interpretation of fiction. So if you noticed that essay prompt mentioned that you need a secondary source for this paper, and you're going to choose one of the articles linked in this specific article here. So I don't want to click it and mess. Well, actually, I think I already have it open. Yeah. So when you click the article, that spot where it says click here, it's going to take you to this web page. And what you're going to see when you scroll down is there's several different reviews, like from the New York Times, like legit reviews of the movie It. And I want you to peek around and, oops, I went to the wrong place. And choose one of those. So you might click more than one and just quickly review and see what you see. But I want you to engage with one of those articles before Monday at 11:59. So here's what you're going to do. Choose one and read it. It's not very long. But then I want you to start to dig into it. So choose and type out 3 quotes where the author summarizes something that happened. If the author says, Henry Bowers cuts an H in Ben's belly. That's something that happened. In contrast, I'm asking you 3 of those moments where they're like, here's a plot point. But then I want you to find 3 other quotes that are analysis. Where does the author of these reviews make an interpretation or judgment? So if they said something like, and I'm making this up, so if they said Henry Bowers carves an H in Ben's belly, and you're like, Yes, he does. But if they say, this shows, you know, the toxic relationships between young boys, let's just say it says something like that, that's an interpretation. The author is saying this is a message about how boys treat each other. Maybe the author says something else like, this shows what happens when parents abuse their children, because Henry Bauer's dad is kind of a jerk, right? I almost cursed. I won't curse on video. But like, he's kind of a jerk. He treats him bad. And so maybe that's an interpretation that someone makes, that this isn't about the boys at all. This is about how adults can be terrible, and it trickles down to children. So what I'm looking for here is your ability to see when something's a plot and when something is a meaning. When is someone telling us a meaning about something, okay? So 3 quotes, 3 meanings. And then I want you to respond to the article. No more than 100 words, or no less, I should say. It can be more than 100. Respond to it. Did you agree with the reviewer? Did they love it and you loved it too? Did they hate it but you loved it? Doesn't matter to me, but I really just want a genuine response to the overall picture that the reviewer gave. Like, did they do a good job? And I will ask you to reply to a peer. So just with 50 words, respond to their response. So if someone said, you know, my reviewer loved it and I did too, but you hated the movie for a lot of really good reasons, you could say, oh, I'm glad you liked it, but I didn't like it because blah, 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 whatever reason. So I ask you to explain with details why you agree or disagree. So this is not an assignment where you're like, I agree with your points, good job. It's clear you watched the movie. No, I want you to say, I agree with your points because I also think this. You know, you want to show an idea in your responses. So we'll get a little practice with that. You'll get feedback on me from that from your previous discussion posts. Most of you are doing a really good job with that, but you just want to keep it in mind in the future, you know, that this, you know, I think it's a meme where people are like, I agree, I disagree, you know, this like very cliche sort of response, but I actually want you to respond with details when you speak back to your peers as much as you can. Okay, let me go to the other 2 assignments. The next one, these next 2 are due Wednesday. So the one I just went over is due Monday, the next 2 are due Wednesday. By the way, if you already know that there's going to be a barrier to you finishing the assignments by that time, shoot me an email so I can see if I can help you a little bit with that. But these are due when they're due. So if something is coming up that's a barrier to your success in that sense, let me know so we can talk about it. But otherwise, they're due when they're due. This next one is pretty easy. So it's due Wednesday, but what I want you to do is go ahead and just like commit to a trope from the essay prompt. So the essay prompt that we looked at the beginning of this video is linked here. You're going to choose 3. Like, which 3 of these things seem like they're most interesting to me? And then you're going to write just a very quick couple of sentences like, this is why I'm interested in this trope. I think he's trying to say X. I'm not sure yet. I don't know exactly what the point is, but this is kind of my thoughts with 3 different tropes. Even if you know the trope you want to do, by the way, I'm asking you to do this assignment. This is just for brainstorming purposes because you may change your mind. Also, someone's going to ask if it has to just be one trope, and the answer is yes. It has to be one trope. That doesn't mean you can't talk about the other ones. So if you talk about beauty, you could also talk about violence or friendships. But the way that I always describe this to students is you need a trope that's Batman, and some of the other tropes might be Robin. Like Catwoman might show up in a paragraph like as a sidekick, but you need a focused trope. That's the central one. So yes, it needs to be one. That doesn't mean the other topics are off limits. They're just supporting actors, okay? So this is about choosing that one. Once you do this assignment, which you don't have to reply to a peer on, by the way, so make sure you read those instructions, I want you to do your first essay building assignment. This is where you're going to begin to gather the evidence that you need to begin writing your paper. If you've taken English before, maybe you start your paper at the top with your introduction. I never teach that way. I always have my students start with getting their quotes for their paragraphs. It's research. It's reviewing the text. It's deciding what's important and what you want to focus on before trying to come up with a thesis, okay? So you don't even think about the word thesis right now. You think about evidence. What stood out to you in this film? Where are some moments that you feel like you want to talk about? Where are some moments that confused you? All specifically related to the trope that you decided. So the 6 moments you pick will all be somehow connected to the trope. I've run out of time on my video, so that covers what I wanted to say, but if you have questions, please feel free to email me. I can meet with you in conferences to talk in detail, but good luck with these assignments. Let me know if you need anything.